Members of Parliament have agreed to postpone a debate and vote on the Section 89 report. This is the Phala Phala saga. It's been moved to next week, Tuesday. This is to allow MPs to be physically present for the sitting. Now, the debate could set in motion proceedings to remove President Cyril Ramaphosa. Last week, the independent panel finding that he has a case to answer over his role in the 2020 robbery at his Limpopo farm. Athi Mtongana joining us live now from Parliament. Athi, good morning to you. Suggestions being made yesterday by at least one opposition party that there was going to be some briefing by opposition parties. Has that now fallen away?
Well, Xoli, I want to begin by taking you back to last night where the National Assembly's Programme Committee convened a special meeting. They ordinarily host their meetings every Thursday morning, but due to these unprecedented times in Parliament, surrounding, of course, the Phala Phala saga, they had to convene a special meeting with party chief whips to deliberate on what was going to be a sitting that would have considered the Phala Phala report. However, they then decided last night that they will postpone it to next week, Tuesday. I do have with me the chief whip of the official opposition party, to talk to us about your position. I think your position has been quite clear, besides the fact that you had wanted the Speaker, of course, to establish an ad hoc committee. But looking at how things have gone since the release of the Section 89 report, and last night, that special meeting for the Programme Committee, talk to us about that and your inputs in it.
Yeah, good morning to your viewers, Athi. Look, I mean, the matter has obviously escalated and things have changed and it has remained incredibly fluid. And you will recall earlier last week, we had written to the Speaker to say we think it is absolutely important to have members of Parliament vote in a roll call in a manual voting system. And what that means is that members of Parliament will have to be called each by name and they would have to indicate how they're voting. We were less interested with the secret ballot, but more interested in having the names of the members of Parliament recorded on how they are voting. Because we believe this is a huge constitutional matter, that members of Parliament can't just be clumped together and vote in party groups, but in fact should exercise their conscience and really state how they're going to vote. It's been really disappointing to also note some of the reports that indicate that the ANC caucus has been instructed to vote against the establishment of an ad hoc, of an impeachment inquiry. What is most bizarre for me, Athi, is if a president is indeed innocent, one would think that they would in fact welcome the establishment of an impeachment inquiry so that he may have an opportunity to be able to clear his name and answer in detail some of the details he was perhaps not able to provide to the Section 89 committee. But instead, we've seen a president now who, just like Nkandla 2.0, has now went and taken the reports on review, and his party is now going to vote against the whole system. This reeks exactly of the fifth parliament, and it seems to me that neither the ANC nor the ANC leadership have learned anything from the Zuma years that they like to punt as the 9 wasted years, or from the Zondo Commission report where we were told that Parliament was in fact complicit in state capture because of our neglecting to do what we're expected to do by the Constitution.
Now, it's interesting that the Speaker initially rejected your request to have a manual roll call voting system, and subsequently after that special NAPC meeting she agreed. How do you think she's going to be presiding over this particular matter even coming into next week?
Look, obviously we welcome, our initial stance was that we have to go for a roll call today. And that we were of the view that regardless of whether or not the President has submitted papers taking the review on the report and review, it has no bearing on the work that Parliament ought to do. That is something that is a process that is separate to us. It doesn't render the report in itself sub judice. But however, other political parties argued that then for Parliament to be able to convene the House physically, to have a roll call. She outright rejected the secret ballot by the ATM. Then we need to postpone to next week Tuesday. Nonetheless, so now we are there, and we are really hoping that this is not going to be made a mockery of. And I was deeply disappointed really in last night's meeting, where, you know, it almost is pedestrian, the way in which members of Parliament are engaging with each other, talking about bring it on. This is a constitutional matter. This is a report that was commissioned by Parliament. We ought to take ownership of it, and as we ought to take ownership of it as members of Parliament, regardless of our party political positions. And the fact that there seems to be some kind of political jostling, is disappointing. My view is that the ANC should welcome an impeachment inquiry, because surely then it would clear the president's name, and surely then they would be on the right side of history, where Parliament is really correcting its ways and saying we've learnt our mistakes from the past. We're not going to protect people at all costs. We're going to make sure that Parliament does its job, but seemingly not. And for me, I think it's rather a sad day when members of Parliament will stand up, regardless of what the Constitution says, regardless of what's expected of us, and say, well, regardless of that, we're going to vote with our party political jerseys and not based on what is right. And I think there's a massive misunderstanding of why we're here and what's expected of us.
All right, thank you so much for your time. The Chief Whip of the Democratic Alliance, obviously they will be next week voting in favor of the establishment of an impeachment inquiry to further look at the prima facie evidence that was collected by the independent panel of experts, the Section 89 panel. So we know, of course, that the ANC, on the other hand, through its NEC, has given a mandate and marching orders to MPs here in the National Assembly, who make up the majority of the National Assembly, to actually vote against the establishment of this impeachment inquiry. Remains to be seen how things will pan out next week, Tuesday, at 2 p.m., right behind me at the Good Hope Chamber.
Athi Mtongana, thank you very much. And you've heard there from the Chief Whip of the main opposition party. She says it's Ngandla 2.0.